Hey guys, this is the Average Joe. Nearly a decade ago, GreyJedi91 put forward the Star Wars Questionnaire, which has been reused by a plethora of people. I wasn't doing videos back then, and the whole thing has kind of faded into obscurity now, but seeing as how it almost became a rite of passage for Versus makers, I thought it would be good to throw my hat in the ring and give my answers. Now let's get into the questions. Question 1. Jedi or Sith? It's no secret that everyone wants to pick the Grey Jedi, and yeah, I'm down for that too. I'd take a more neutral approach to the entire situation. Sort of a Revan meets Ahsoka. While we're on the subject, I've noticed that a good amount of people in the fandom have started hating the term Grey Jedi recently. The argument I've heard most often follows along the lines of, there's nothing in Star Wars to say Grey Jedi exist, you just made that up so you could use both sides of the Force without consequences. First off, yes, this is a made-up term. Why can't the fans add some extra lore for their headcanon? God forbid that somebody use both the light and dark in their abilities. And here's the other important thing about this situation. Both the Jedi and the Sith are extremists at their core. The consequences of walking a path down the middle is that both sides are going to hate you and actively pursue you for your beliefs. The Jedi will see you as a radical operating outside their jurisdiction, and the Sith will see you as a rival to their power. It's a big responsibility to fulfill the expectations of either side, but it's an even more difficult burden to walk the path of destiny alone. Question 2. Favorite world? I'm going to answer this question as if it's which planet would I live on, because I've never really had a special love for any of the planets in the Star Wars universe. So the thing about the planets is that too many of them only have one weather extreme all the time. Complete burning heat, complete Arctic cold. I'd like to experience all the seasons if I can. But the closest planet I found to my hometown is Naboo. And as much as I'd like to experience the other seasons, I wouldn't really mind having warm grasslands at all times. So let's go with that. Question 3. Lightsaber type, color, and form. To truly represent my path in the light and dark, I'm going to use a pair of twin lightsabers. One with green crystals, and one with red crystals. If that's not possible, a pair of purple blades will work just as well for the light and dark aesthetic, but I really do like red and green. Actually, to be honest, my favorite color has always been black, so if I can find whatever crystal it took to make the Darksaber, I'll take your entire stock. For my lightsaber form, I am a large, dominating figure, which makes walking home at night difficult when everyone thinks I'm going to rob them solely because I stand over 6 foot tall, but if I were a lightsaber duelist, I would take a Bane Vader route. Form 2 for precision, Form 3 for defense, Form 5 for counters and leveraging strength, and Form 7 for an aggressive assault. I probably wouldn't achieve the same level of mastery, but having the wide arsenal can be just as well. Question 4. Favorite alien? I've always had a taste for arts and cultures, so I feel like I'll get along best with the Degrutans and the Twi'leks. Question 5. Favorite vehicle? I've always liked the more homely ships, like the Falcon and the Ghosts. Mobile homes are always great. I mean, except when they're not, but imagine being able to travel the galaxy from your couch. Question 6. Which Jedi Master? Taking that neutral stance in the Force is going to require a more open-minded master. Maybe someone like Qui-Gon Jinn or Kyle Katarn? I mean, I feel like I'd want to work most under Katarn long-term, because I don't really like how much Qui-Gon sacrifices his own ability out of his sheer respect for the Force, but serving under him early on will establish those tenements of the will of the Force, even if I don't treat it as the sacred thing that he does. Question 7. Which Sith Master? Everyone says Darth Plagueis in this category, because he's the one guy who will treat you with respect and dignity after the whole brutally torture you thing is done. And while that is a great thing and I'd certainly take this opportunity if presented, I'd also like to remind people of Darth Gravid. Gravid? I don't think it was ever given a proper pronunciation. Gravid was a Sith who tried to defect to the Jedi and destroyed a lot of Sith knowledge before his apprentice killed him. I would personally probably defect with him. Though maybe talk him out of trying to get into the main order's good graces, and I would also convince him to not destroy all that knowledge. 'Cause it's knowledge. Question 8. What is your Darth name? Now, I am not a Latin speaker, first and foremost, but if my translator has served me well, then I do have a name I picked out. Darth Agido. This is a cross between the Latin words agitor and praedo, which mean helper and destroyer, respectively. I took this name to represent my dual persona and my ability to heal or wound depending on the situation and what's at stake. This is all a roundabout way of saying my self-insert is a chaotic neutral at worst and chaotic good at best. I personally wouldn't consider myself a villainous person by nature, but I also know that I have a self-destructive edge. This is only going to be amplified when you have space magic fueling you at every turn. Question 9. Favorite film? Revenge of the Sith. It's got everything you need in a Star Wars movie, and it becomes all the better when you learn on the outside material and see all the world building George put into the piece of this franchise. And people call the prequels bad. Question 10. Least favorite film? The Rise of Skywalker. Eventually, I plan on doing a video giving my honest assessment of all the films, and I'll go into more detail on my preferences there, but for right now, I'll leave it at this. As bad as the other films in this piece of the saga are, they at least had some cohesion to them as standalone stories. This movie felt more like a Star Wars best hits than an actual film. Question 11. If you could write your own Star Wars novel, what would it be about? Ooh, have I got ideas for this one. For one, I want to explore Tor Vizsla's story. The idea of a Mandalorian Jedi fascinates me. Another thing I'd like to look at is the rule of two Sith between the Bane and Sidious eras. I'd kinda like to know more about the people in between, and I'd like to know exactly what they were doing in that time. Really, 1,000 years with a corrupt government and a complacent Jedi Order? How did no one think to take them out before Palpatine? Another thing I kinda want to explore is the races that don't have many Force sensitives. I mentioned the Mandalorian, and the lore has given us a Hutt Jedi in the past, but I remember some of the one-off material, like that Ewok Jedi or the Jawa Sith. What were their stories? I want to know. Question 12. Which film has your favorite soundtrack? I've never really spent too much time thinking about the soundtracks of each individual film compared to just the overall feel of the John Williams score. But I think the film that has the most scores I love was A New Hope. Leia's theme, the Imperial March, Cantina Band, and there's just something special about hearing the Force theme for the first time over the Twin Sunsets. Question 13. Do you collect figures? I have a few merch pieces here and there that I keep around, but it's not like an active thing for me. Question 14. What is the best thing about the EU? The expansive lore. Do you really think that when George made those 3 little films 50 years ago, that he would wind up with a mythos that rivals Tolkien's Middle-earth in history and world-building? Question 15. What is the worst thing about the EU? The EU's greatest strength is also its greatest weakness. And as much as they did try to keep consistency, there were just a few too many contradictions in its own history to make it work. To be honest, I kinda like the way Disney handled this aspect of it at first. Just the name. Legends. Like, these are all stories of what happened, passed down through generations. If the new material is the true narrative, which I have a love-hate relationship with some of what they added, but I do think it's interesting to have the legends be a slightly exaggerated version of this history. Like, maybe General Grievous was a cowardly bully in person, but his brutal tactics on the battlefield left a lot of people scared and telling tall tales about him. Like, you have a couple of kids sitting at a campfire. No, man, I heard that he killed Jedi just by stepping on them. Bruh, I heard that even Mace Windu ran away scared. Or, you know, the real General Skywalker being an ashamed nobody in the end, but man, my grandpa said that Luke could beat a black hole with his mind. Dude, my dad said that he could go Super Saiyan. I don't know if my intention here is to make these people sound like children or stoners, but it works either way. Just to be clear, I don't necessarily like these changes to the characters, but the idea behind it is fascinating to me as a world builder. Question 16. What does Star Wars mean to you? That's none of your business. What does this guy think? I don't ask you personal questions like that. Okay, in all seriousness, I owe a lot of what I am today to Star Wars. When I was younger, I was eager to get my hands on any fantasy I could find as a kid. Chronicles of Narnia, Harry Potter, Pokemon. Heck, the reason I still carry VeggieTales with me so much is because it was the first franchise that I started following obsessively and thinking, I want to know everything I can about this show and the people who made it. But back to Star Wars. I remember the first time I discovered Jen Sarai's Yoda vs. Plagueis video all those years ago, and I was like, whoa, that's a thing? It's not just like that one line in the movie? And that led me down a rabbit hole of binging videos detailing the expanded lore on YouTube. That's really where I stopped treating fiction as just fiction. Once I started finding these comics on my own and learning about the culture and history of Star Wars, I realized that it was an escape from hard and boring reality. I could be anything I wanted to be, study histories and people I actually found interesting, and I could enter a whole other world just through the imagination. That's the reason I wanted my original channel to focus on the verses. It's a tribute to the people and content that changed my life. And none of it would have been possible if it weren't for Star Wars. So, thanks guys. That got extremely personal, I'm gonna be honest. I kinda went off script there. Thank you everyone for watching. I'll see you guys later. Peace.